business and not having any help in the shop here today. So I'll try to get to my point here pretty quick, and if I have to jump through a customer, we'll try it again another day. But I just want to do a quick video on pistons. So if you look at pistons, one of the things that you should see, it's sort of hard to show you, but there should be horizontal machining marks on the piston, marks going this way, just the way that machined pistons look. It should be on the front, should be on the back. But what happens over time is those machine marks wear off. Usually you're going to take a lot of your wear on the rings. The rings are going to be inside the cylinder wall. But over time, when this starts to shrink down, just through general use, sometimes you get debris through your carburetor, which will end up sanding it down. Then your rings get a little bit smaller. And what ends up happening is you get blow-by on the top of your piston. So blow-by, the simplest way to explain it is the rings touch against the cylinder wall. They should be nice and tight. You have your spark plug up here, igniting the fuel in the combustion chamber, pushing down your piston, dropping it down and back up. But what happens when you have a blow-by with your rings, you're having the combustion going around the piston instead of it all hitting the force on the top of the piston. So then you don't get the power. You might have a saw that idles, but it ends up dying when you go to throttle it up. Other times the saw will run fine, but it won't idle. So intermittent running issues, that would be the first thing I would check is the piston. This can be done as easy as taking the muffler off the unit. So if you're going to look at the exhaust side, you want to make sure that everything has horizontal machining marks, and you're going to want to look for scoring on there. On the air intake side, the carburetor side, biggest thing on that is going to be the sanding of the piston. Every once in a while you get a little bit of scoring with debris and stuff on there, but make sure that you guys are inspecting that. One thing I want to show you too, so we'll roll with this piston here. This and I replaced a week ago. Hadn't seen this happen before, but it was for a concrete saw. If you notice all the pitting on the top there and the corners that are broke open, this actually happened when the customer took off the spark plug and they got debris inside the cylinder wall, and that debris sat on top of the piston. As it was going up and down, it was smacking around and it was pitting the top of that piston. And it ended up causing some damage on the side and some of the rings, so it wasn't getting compression. So we ended up replacing that piston for the customer. Another one right here, this was off a TS 800 concrete saw. If you notice right there on the front, there are no horizontal machine marks. So you should have little marks going side to side. What is happening with this end is the pistons, I don't know if you can see that on the front, that ring at the bottom there, that one is actually sticking in there a little bit. So it's not retracting and holding tight against the cylinder wall. So that one was not getting compression. That was the cause of failure on this one. When I go ahead and take these off, by the time you have it tore apart with parts and labor here in the shop, there's absolutely no point in not replacing the piston and just replacing the rings. I mean, if you did this on the side or as a hobbyist, you could probably get by replacing just the rings on some of these. But as a shop, you've already got it tore down. It's not much more money. Just buy the piston and the rings. Another one. So this is the air intake side of the piston. If you look at this, I mean, it's not too terrible bad. It's worn. There's no horizontal machining marks. But once you turn it around to the exhaust side, boom, there's your problem. So super bad scoring. You can feel this pretty heavy with your finger. You can catch your fingernail on it. Notice how both rings are seized into that piston, and that is causing the issues where the saw won't start. So this is completely trashed. On this particular one, since this has damage that you can actually feel on it, when we took the cylinder off, it transferred the scoring onto the cylinder. So it's not something that you can just go in and clean up. We actually ended up replacing the whole set. I think this was off of a steel 291 chainsaw. Customer ran straight gas through it. The saw was actually only a few weeks old. So I mean, the piston wasn't terrible by any means, but once it gets to this point, it is completely trashed. So if you saw the video that I did the other day, this is off the 500i saw. So this is the exhaust side. If you notice that big old flat scoring area right there, the rings are seized into the piston. and which ended up happening to the backside. So front right here, straight across from there. On the opposite side, you have scoring as well. It was pushing the rings tight against the side, and you were having a bunch of catching on there. You can feel some marks. So this particular one, if you look at the wrist pin, see how hot it got. The customer was actually cutting a stump with it, a big stump, rather large. I mean, the saw can go up to 36 inches in bar length, but anybody that's run these saws knows the sweet spot's about 28. So 36 is pretty much pushing it past its limit on there when you're doing some really heavy stumping. And he just ended up heating everything up, not getting enough good lubrication on there. And yeah, so we ended up with scoring on there. And this is not able to be saved with new rings because you've got it on the face of the piston. Here's another one that I took off of a 391 saw. If you look at the top, actually blew chunks of it off. So not really sure how that happened, sort of detonated inside the cylinder wall, but needless to say, that one has blown off. I've seen several of them on that particular model that have done the same thing. So I don't know if it's related or it just happened to be coincidence, but yeah, that's what happened to this guy. Unfortunately, cylinder wall again, have to be replaced because once you get the scoring on there and you can touch it with your finger, pretty much toast. A lot of times, if it's just wear marks on these, you can just take and clean up the inside of that cylinder wall pretty easy and reuse it, so you don't have to buy the whole new top end. But once you get any significant scoring on there, I mean, this one's really bad. If you look at the side, I usually don't see a lot of scoring on the side of pistons. It's usually just on the exhaust side of things. And that's due to a lean run issue. Lean run issue could be multiple things. So the obvious one is going to be straight fuel. Anytime you run straight fuel in there, there's no lubrication. You need lubrication, metal on metal contact, 13,000 RPMs roughly in a lot of these pistons. You have to have lubrication or it will score. It will score in a few seconds. It's not going to take, you know, a week of cutting to score. It's one and done. It'll run really good and then it'll just not work. So the other thing is mixing your oil and fuel wrong. I see a lot of problems with that. I ask customers how they're mixing their fuel. Some guys will take the oil, dump it in the gas can, then put the fuel on top. Other guys will put the fuel in, then dump the oil. Some guys will shake it, some guys won't shake it. There's different mixins, obviously. I'm a steel dealer, I sell steel, I sell Husqvarna. But there's Echo Red Armor out there, there's AMSOIL, there's a whole bunch of other ones in between. Everybody's got their favorite. But it doesn't matter what kind of oil you have. If you don't mix it right, it's still going to cause lean run issues and destroy your pistons. So at the end of the day, there's really no way to dummy proof people not lubricating stuff right. I mean, perfect example. Let me grab you a bottle right here and show you. So if you look at the steel mix, this is going to mix into 1 gallon of gas. I had a customer the other day, had a scored piston, swore up and down he used this in his mix, okay? So there's mixed opinions on quality of this and other stuff. Everybody's got their favorites, but let's just take that out of the equation. The customer took one of these bottles, notice how it says 1 gallon per 1 gallon. He mixed this in his 5-gallon gas can. So you're getting 20% of the oil that's needed to properly lubricate that piston if you put one of these in 5 gallons of gas. You need to have 5 of these in 5 gallons of gas. So he didn't buy the saw here because when I sell this stuff, I explain how this stuff is mixed so that way there is no mistake. But I know you can buy these saws at certain dealers that do not have knowledgeable staff that don't explain to the customer how to properly mix this stuff. I sell this stuff, and when I sell it, I assume the person I'm selling it to has never used this before, has never mixed gas before. So I sort of give, you know, the elementary with crayons edition of how to mix this in with gas. So some people look at me like I'm crazy, and other people basically take notes. So just make sure whatever you guys are doing, you're adequately mixing this with the fuel. Shake your cans around. I don't care how you do it, but this has to be in there. Otherwise, your pistons are gonna end up looking like this. And for the amount of money that it costs to replace the top end, I think this 391 saw, you got 200 in parts, another, you know, 7,500 bucks in labor and miscellaneous. So you're gonna be 300 bucks replacing this, where if you would have just mixed this properly, this all could have been avoided. So let me take a look at some of the questions you guys have. How we doing? Sophia, negative, hi. How you guys doing? Sherry, thanks for tuning in. Joel, good to see ya. Nerd got bit by something. It was so crazy. Okay, what'd you get bit by, nerd? Michelle, hi. So I hope you guys learned a little bit more about pistons. You don't want scoring on your pistons. So hang cord test. Let me show you a hang cord test. This is in pretty much all of my videos with compression checks. This is something you can do at home. Doesn't require any thought. Doesn't require any training. You're just gonna take your unit and hold it by the pull cord. So it should hold pretty good and slightly drop. If it just drops straight down, more than likely, your piston's probably gonna look like this. So one thing to do if you guys have a saw or something with a decomp valve on it, if you're doing a hang cord test, make sure that that decomp valve is not pushed in, because you'll have a major air leak there on the top, and when you do the hang cord test, it'll drop right down. So make sure you pull that out, seal up the chamber, then you can do your hang cord test. But I do a hang cord test with every single piece of equipment that comes in the shop that is not running. So that will lead me to whether I inspect the piston or not. If it's not running, sometimes there's other things that are wrong with the unit that aren't related to it running like that, so I won't have to spend the time looking at it. But if it comes in like that, I will definitely check the hang cord test, because 99.9% of the time it will lead me to this issue. So make sure you guys are doing that. Another thing that you can have going on is air leaks with your equipment. So you're gonna need a pressure vacuum tester. If you guys don't have one of these, they're real handy. There's different brands you can get. You can get Mighty Vacs. I've got Mighty Vac 2. This is my steel one. So you got vacuum going out, you got pressure going in. You're just gonna build this up, and you're gonna be testing for air leaks. That's something that I do not a ton of time. It just really depends on the symptoms and what's leading me to check that stuff. You can get scoring from air leaks, yes, but most all the time it is not air leak issues. It is caused by fuel issues, and usually you can gauge a lot by asking your customer questions when they come in to tell how knowledgeable they are with stuff. And they'll pretty much point you in the direction of they didn't mix their fuel right. Something that I also do too is I have these little test vials. What I do is I'll dump all the fuel out in a container. I'll take this, dip it in there, pull out some fuel, and then I can look at it and I can see if it has straight gas in it or if I see it's mixed up. So I'm not really judging which oil compound it's mixed with. I'm just looking to see if it has any mixing in there. Because a lot of times customers do not have their stuff mixed right, and you'll be surprised how many times I've caught straight fuel come in here. So a customer might say, hey, my unit wasn't working, I put gas in it, it's still not working, I brought it here. Well, I always dump out fuel when stuff's not working. So the reason I do that is because sometimes customers will put straight fuel in their stuff, and I'll actually catch it before I do a test run on the piece of equipment. If I just assume that the customer mixed their stuff right and they had the right oil fuel mixture in there, then if there was an instance where it had straight gas in there and I ran it, I could be the one that was causing the scoring on the piston. So to eliminate that issue, I just use the premix Moto Mix. This is what I test with because it takes the gas and elimination out of there. You can mix your own gas, whatever you do, just always dump the customer's fuel out. I can't stress out enough, especially like on chainsaws and stuff. You would not believe how much residue and stuff that I find in the bottom of this gas. Just wood chips, dirt, debris, rocks, all that crap. So that stuff's just sitting there floating around the tank and getting stuck on the fuel filter. So that's part of my maintenance and cleaning and inspection services, dumping the fuel out. So that is something that you guys should get in the habit doing. Hang cord, fuel. That will pretty much clear up about half of your questions when you're dealing with running issues. So let me check some more questions here. Let's see. There's a question about a BR blower. You can do a leak down. Leak down is a little bit different. So leak down is going to require gauges. I do have a video out there of leak downs. You can see the process through that, but you are going to need a leak down tool to be able to check that on the backpack blowers. And then let's see here. The BR600 has a knocking noise. That could be several different things. You got to see where it's coming from. Obviously, if it's internal, I mean, there's a multitude of things it could be. You could have chunks of your piston broke off like that. Could be clutch that's having issues. I mean, without looking at it, it's hard to tell exactly. You replace and adjusted the valves. Won't start. I would check that piston on that BR600. You're pretty much going to have to take that apart and check. The pull cord's really easy to pull. You probably have piston damage on there. Something that I notice on blowers too, they tend to get problems with the air leaks. You'll see a whole bunch of oil residue on the bottom of the crankcase. And usually what that means is there's a leak in there somewhere. Most of the time I've had scored pistons on those. There's tons of oil residue on the bottom there. So when I take the recoil assembly off and I see a bunch of oil residue, that generally leads me to believe that it's going to have some sort of air leak issue without going through and doing the testing. But it depends on what model it is. I mean, if you have a 350 model and they're $400 brand new and you've got a used blower, you know, you're going to spend all the labor and the parts fixing it up? Probably not. Once you get to that point and you've done a compression test, like a leak down, or inspected the piston, it's just pretty much a throwaway at that point. I know there's aftermarket stuff that you can buy, but you really have to weigh what it costs. You know, at the end of the day, you can put new parts on an old piece of equipment, but you're still going to have an old piece of equipment with new parts on it. So if your blower was worth $200 in working condition before you put new parts on it, it's not worth more than $200 because you put new parts on it. So, I mean, unless you're really in love with a piece of equipment, some of that stuff's just not worth fixing. Most of what I do repairs on for pistons are going to be like chainsaws, concrete saws, stuff like that. Even on like trimmers and brush cutters, those are not worth replacing the piston and stuff. They have short blocks. Let me grab a short block that I just did and show you guys that. The short block is going to be your piston, cylinder, crankcase, valves. It's going to be the whole shebang. So here's your short block. So these are like, I want to say 170 some, 180 bucks. And that's going to be like on your FS 131s, 91s, stuff like that. But there is really no point in tearing everything apart. Because by the time you tear it apart and the labor and buy the parts, you're already halfway or more than just replacing this whole assembly. So why would you go to all that work completely disassembling everything and not replace this whole thing? I guess that's just my opinion on it. But I mean, it's your money, you can spend whatever you want. But so this is what that stuff looks like. It's got the valves on top. The valves he was referring to on the blower are going to be similar to the valves on this engine. This, like I said, is off a FS131 trimmer. It's going to have the valves on top. It's going to have the piston and crankcase down below. Take the top off here and show you guys. So that's what the valves look like on top. Just has a cover on there, nothing special. They do have gasket kits for steel. I replace those quite a bit. They're really cheap. So this is what a gasket kit looks like for these. There's a part number if anybody wants it. It's got that. It's got the washer up top, and then it's got the gauge right there. So you can measure out your valves and get those adjusted. So on these particular ones, I mean, this conversation's carrying a different way, but I'm more than happy to show you guys. So with these, you're going to be rotating until you get top dead center. So on the flywheels of these units, there's going to be a little arrow that is going to line up with the bottom of the ignition coil. And once you get there, you're going to be at top dead center. And then you're going to do your adjustment. Obviously, this is not at top dead center because it's off the unit and I don't have a way of rotating it. But basically, you're going to take your gauge. You're going to stick it right underneath there. And what you want to do, you want to be able to slide this in there, but you want to be able to pull it out. So it needs to be sticky a little bit, but it can't be to the point where you can't get it in there. And then you're going to go back to the other side, check that one, and then all you do is adjust is that little nut on top. You're just going to take your tool right there. This is an 8mm, and you're just going to turn it in or turn it out. But most of the time, it's just going to be like an 1/8 of an inch turn either way. It's not going to be you're cranking on it, you know, taking it in, you know, 3 or 4 turns. That's not how these are designed, or that's not how far they get out of specs. It's just going to be a very, very slight adjustment on there. But yeah, this particular one, I don't even remember what the cause was. It wasn't running. There was some scoring or something in there. But that had to be replaced for a customer to get their unit running back as new. I do maybe a dozen or so of these a year on trimmers. Just depends which model. I mean, if you have a 91 and you paid $300 some for it, are you going to put $200 in parts and then another hour in labor tearing everything apart and putting it back together? No. So that's pretty much going to be a throwaway at that point. If you have a 131 brush cutter that's almost $700 new, yeah, you can afford to do that because you're still under half of what it costs for new. So when you guys are replacing this stuff, just keep in mind, like I said, the costs of what new is versus parts and labor fixing it up. So again, pistons, make sure you guys are checking your oil mix. That is vital. Most new stuff's 50-to-1. I have guys out there that want to run 40-to-1 like older days, but I guess if you're going to err on the side of doing something, err on the side of putting too much oil in there instead of not enough. But know that if you're mixing it stronger, you're probably going to clog up your spark arresters. So you're going to have to check those more frequently, or some people just eliminate them altogether. So that's personal preference. I can't tell you what to do on that. So let's check a couple more questions, and then I got to get back to work here. Sell steel blower that turns but spits gas out the exhaust. Usually if it's spitting gas out the exhaust, it's been flooded through the starting process. If you've choked it too much to get it started, you're pushing too much fuel in there. So by the time you do get it started, it's shooting a bunch of gas out. That will go away when you run it. The heat from the muffler will evaporate that fuel out. If it's a continuing issue, it's probably going to be carburetor related, because the carburetor is what's going to mix that fuel and air and get it inside there. So I would replace the carburetor if you know that you're doing the right starting procedures on it. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Make sure you check out my other videos. I'm gonna drop a couple other videos this afternoon. Just some simple stuff: replacing shaft on a string trimmer, replacing a recoil rope on a hedge trimmer. The recoil rope stuff, that is gonna be pretty similar to every single unit that they have. It's just gonna be a different size. So make sure you guys check out that video if you wanna see how to restring that and fix that assembly too. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. If you guys haven't already, make sure you guys subscribe to my channel. I'm going to keep posting updates every day, what comes through the shop on a daily basis, and doing repairs and showing you guys the repair process of the equipment that customers bring in. So have a great rest of your day, guys. Thanks.